On July 30th, 2014, the president of the AFA, Julio Grondona, passed away. Grondona was more than just a president. Everything surrounding Argentine football happened because of him and had absolute control over the referees, the ecosystem, and the clubs that composed the AFA. At the time of his death, Grondona had been president of the AFA for over 35 years and at the same time was vice president of FIFA, representing CONMEBOL since 1988. The most important figure in Argentine football was gone, and the question was, what now? Would the status quo remain the same after years of behaving like a mafia, or was it time for a new AFA? This is the story of the 38 to 38, the biggest and most disgraceful scandal in Argentine football history. This video was requested by the members of the channel. If you become a member of the channel, you'll be able to vote on monthly polls to choose the topic of the next video, on top of getting early access to all of my videos. To learn more, click the join button below and also leave a like and subscribe while you're at it, as it helps the channel a lot. Now, back to the story. After Grondona's death, Luis Segura, the elected vice president, took charge of the AFA to complete the term. Despite what results may indicate, as San Lorenzo had won the most recent Copa Libertadores and the national team had reached the final of the latest World Cup, the truth was that the association was in a state of disarray at the moment of Grondona's death. Massive debts and blatant corruption meant that the AFA had no money to sustain itself. Grondona would be one of the names that appeared the most on the lists of the FIFA Gate the year after. Segura barely managed to complete his term before it was time to call for elections once again. He would be running as the officialist, willing to continue Grondona's work as his natural successor. Segura's bid had a lot of support among the highest spheres of power in Argentina. Hugo Moyano, president of Independiente and of the National Workers Union, backed Segura, as well as the president of Boca Juniors, Daniel Angelici, and a man called Claudio Tapia, president of 3rd Division side Barracas Central, and someone who had good relations with many clubs in the lower divisions and outside of Buenos Aires. On the side of the opposition stood Marcelo Tinelli, a man with a long career in Argentine TV as a host, initially of sketch shows, and at the time had been the host of Argentina's version of Dancing with the Stars for 9 years. Despite this confusing resume, Tinelli had dabbled into the world of football politics in multiple occasions. In 1998, he took charge as chairman of Club Deportivo Badajoz in Spain, where he had aspirations to promote the small side to La Liga. But after a disappointing campaign, the club finished 14th and nearly went bankrupt, forcing him to resign. In more recent years, Tinelli had become involved in the politics of the club he supported, San Lorenzo, initially promoting the club's basketball team before backing the bid of Matias Lamens as president of the club in 2012, both of them winning the election in a landslide. While his resume was bizarre and not that impressive, Tinelli's proposal was very interesting. He promised a AFA more professional and up-to-date with the times, pushing to remove the newly implemented Super League that saw the number of teams in the first division increase from 20 to 30 in 2014, wanting to advertise the league better with new TV deals and, most importantly, remove all corruption deeply rooted in the AFA. Although in the past, Tinelli himself had personally called Grondona to change referees that were assigned to San Lorenzo games. Despite all the skepticism, Tinelli's bid had a lot of support too, the main man being Rodolfo Donofrio, president of River Plate, who wanted a spot in the AFA's roundtable after the fallout the association had with his club, which eventually led to its relegation all the way back in 2011. All this painted a picture for a very close election to take place on December 3rd, 2015, where a total of 75 representatives from different clubs across all divisions of Argentine football would choose the next president of the AFA. Both Tinelli and Segura moved very quickly to secure allies and win the votes of as many directives as they could. promising many of them a spot in their committee if they were to win. Both sides felt pretty confident going into the election, reassuring their allies that they had secured the votes of over 40 directives respectively, something obviously impossible because there were only 75 of them, which revealed ahead of time that there were traitors and mercenaries among the directives who had pledged allegiance to both sides to reap off the benefits no matter the outcome. On the day of the election, the 30 degrees Celsius of temperature could be felt in an AFA meeting room that had no air conditioning and no catering due to the lack of funds. All the directives had to eat were a couple of sandwiches and a soda provided by the brand which sponsored the national team. Once inside, most directives were aware of the traitors present in the room, but nobody knew who was who. Paranoia set in, and before the election, Hugo Moyano gave a speech to all of those present. Look each other in the eye. We're all gonna vote for Segura, and those who aren't convinced are free to walk out. Because in a matter of minutes, we will know if there's a traitor in here. We're gonna vote for an AFA run by directives, where big and small clubs are the same, and football is above any business. Initially, the votes would be announced right after they were casted, but this would obviously expose anyone that had promised to vote for both sides. So in the end, the directives placed their envelope in the urn one after the other, and the votes were only counted once everyone had voted. After all the votes were accounted for, Segura had secured himself 38 votes, while Tinelli had gotten 38, a draw. And may I remind you that the amount of directives eligible to vote on the day was 75, and in case you're not very good at math, 75 is an odd number which makes a draw absolutely impossible. The votes were counted once again to make sure no one had miscounted, but no, that was the result, 38 to 38. Mumbling and curses filled the room as the people in charge of counting the votes looked at each other in disbelief. The procedure looked completely normal, and yet someone had slipped an extra vote on either side, which led to this impossible outcome. Very quickly, Angelici proposed a new voting to take place, this time simply raising hands in favor of either candidate to settle the election as soon as possible. But then again, this idea was also rejected, as it would expose everyone who had put their eggs in both baskets. What's worse, this late into the evening, a couple of directives had already left before the votes were counted, making the procedure for a new election completely illegitimate. The two directives that left ahead of time were identified as the president of Excursionistas, Ángel Lozano, who was bound to step down off his charge the same evening and instead decided not to show up at his own press conference and go to the AFA to cast his vote, and the president of Crucero del Norte, businessman Julio Grondona, who left and immediately took a charter flight back to the province of Misiones and turned off his mobile phone for a whole month, disappearing from public view even while his team still signed players. Both Lozano and Grondona had close ties with Tinelli. Nonetheless, the session was closed with no winner, and both Segura and Tinelli shared their indignation about the whole scandal to the press, both reassuring that they'd still run for president in the elections that were now scheduled for July 3rd, 2016. Election that would never take place, as the General Inspection of Justice decided to launch a full-on investigation onto the AFA. Segura resigned and Tinelli decided to retrieve his bid as president as well. Seeing the mess that was unfolding in Argentina, FIFA decided to intervene the AFA and select a junta with Armando Pérez as president to put order and regulate the AFA's economy until regular elections could be held. Elections that finally took place on March 29, 2017, with the Argentinian national team on the verge of disaster in the World Cup qualifiers road to Russia 2018, Claudio Chiqui Tapia won in a landslide and became the president of the AFA, charge that he still holds to this day. And that's the story of the 38 to 38. I hope that you guys enjoyed and hopefully learned something new. Remember to like, comment your thoughts down below and subscribe to not miss out on any more content like this. I'll be seeing you all next time.